So I wanted, before we get started, to let everyone know that I have a new podcast out, and it's called Meditations. If you like the Meditations segment of this current podcast, you'll like the Meditations podcast. It's nothing but 20 minutes of meditative sounds. And now, on with the podcast.
Americans love scenery. We want to see it all, from one coast to the next, Mount Rushmore down to the Everglades. So hop into a Chevy Malibu and take the scenic route. It's the car you knew America could build. There's a place where people count on friendships they can trace back generations, where they can count on the same stool at the coffee shop waiting for them every morning. This place is called Glen Ellen, and you can find it in every bottle of Glen Ellen wine. This is craft brewed Herman Joseph's, the smoothest, easiest drinking specialty beer in the entire solar system. And I believe you'll find drinkable in the dictionary right after don't order a beer you can't drink. Zoingo! Boingo! The freestyle pogo with more boing, more bounce. Bounce further, bounce higher with Zoingo Boingo. To see what makes Arrowhead Mountain Spring water different from those other waters, you have to go back to the source. And with Arrowhead, that means going back a little farther and longer than most. Between security challenged and security strengthened, there's one important word: how. And it is the how that makes all the difference to our nation and our world. Lockheed Martin. We never forget who we're working for. What makes Kraft Singles so good? 2 out of every 3 kids don't get the recommended amount of calcium. But with Kraft Singles, they get a good source of calcium and the taste they love. Kraft Singles. Magic every single time. Throw boring overboard with a new real meal from Long John Silver's. A meal worthy of a plate. Just $4.99. Only at Long John Silver's. We may not all be geniuses, but we can all do something smart. Introducing the Hyundai 199 Sonata Lease. It's a smart deal on a really smart car.
This place, even all kinds of people. The other night at the bar, I heard 2 guys talk, you know. I heard one guy say, "What do you think of Cambodia?" The other guy said, "If he's Italian, he's all right." You know, when I worked at tough clubs years ago, I really met characters. Oh, I met characters.
Well, Rodney, years ago, I worked some tough places myself, you know.
You worked some tough places?
Oh, I worked one place that was so tough, one night the boss said to me, "Kid, you want to go hunting?" I said, "Okay, I'm game," and he shot me.
You meet characters all over the place, don't you, Dean? I'll tell you, one of the toughest jobs I ever had, you know, I worked in Coney Island. I was a kid, but I was middle of all the rides, you know. People going to Ferris wheel, they come in. One night, a couple of people from the whip, they came to see me. All night long, they laughed at me like this, you know. Ha!
Good morning. It's Monday, Moral Monday, August the 4th, and this is The True Conservative. Welcome to all the butchers, bakers, and candlestick makers out there. I'm Ron, your host, and the only true conservative in the United States today. So today, after the Serenity Prayer and the patriotic song of the day, we will have motivation, meditation, Varney and Company, and moral politics. All that and more when I get back. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I should not change, the courage to change the things I should, and the wisdom to know the difference. Amen. Thank you. Now from an article in the American Thinker called Who Judges the Judges? The last three paragraphs. Constitutional departmentalism raises a fascinating issue that Vermeulen may not appreciate. As conservative constitutional historian and the Raoul Berger professor at Northwestern University Law, Stephen Presser recently told me, we've been conditioned to think that only the courts can tell us what the Constitution means, but that's never actually been the case. And, let's see... and residents from the beginning of the Republic have repudiated assorted court actions. Jurisdiction stripping, taking matters out of the hands of inferior courts, is another remedy, but getting Congress to act is not easy. In other words, despite the bias of most law professors, reinforced by the concept of judicial review, our courts really don't have a monopoly as constitutional law interpreters. President Trump perhaps holds more cards that may be appreciated. He has historical precedent if he chooses to ignore bad court orders, effectively holding judges in contempt, and it may be argued that he has a right and a duty under his oath to do so. This points to one other critical issue with our judicial system. Most of its problems aren't legal. They're managerial. Legal maneuvering can't replace responsible management. The Speaker and Chief Justice have a job to do, and that includes recognizing executive office constitutional duty when judges go rogue or when they can't find the law in their opinions and orders. And that is an article in the American Thinker from called Who Judges the Judges? And it's by Matthew G. Anderson. Back in a minute. Thank you. So, Maria Bartiromo, Sunday Maria Bartiromo, and she's interviewing Stephen Miller, and I want you to hear the gaslighting that goes on here.
Well, do you believe we will actually get accountability? We've been demanding accountability now for a decade. Our audience is well aware that this is the biggest political scandal we have ever seen, and an effort to undermine and take down a duly elected president. But now we want to see the tricksters face the consequences. Will they?
I have complete confidence in the Department of Justice to follow these facts, to follow this new, further avalanche of evidence, and to take all the necessary legal steps to ensure that the wrongdoers, the coup plotters, the schemers, and the insurrectionists are held fully accountable under the laws and Constitution of these United States.
So, there you go. That's gaslighting. Gaslighting, one of the techniques of gaslighting is that when you get asked a specific question, you give a general answer. And that's what he did here. She asked a specific question. Yes or no, will we get justice? And he goes on and on about the Constitution and his confidence, etc. That's a general response and gaslighting. Back in a minute. Thank you. This is now Maria Bartiromo on Sunday again, but now she's with Mark Levin, the worst voice on radio, and here's an example of him preaching to the choir.
Today. Mark, we were just talking about the DOJ's next moves. We also saw sabotage last night with Chuck Schumer wanting to be paid to advance President Trump's nominees.
You know, Maria, they like to accuse Donald Trump of being a dictator and so forth, and yet they're projecting. I would say Chuck Schumer is the closest thing to a fascist. Listen to me. The closest thing to a fascist we've ever had. He's packed the courts. He said he did it to thwart the Trump agenda. They want to pack the Supreme Court. He threatened 2 Supreme Court justices. He was part of the cabal that had open borders to do what? To change the citizenry and make sure the Democrats will win elections in the future. This man, he doesn't believe in the Constitution at all. And now he's blackmailing the President of the United States, duly elected, that if you want your nominees to fill the executive branch positions, We're going to shake you down for money like a mobster.
So there you go. He is preaching to the choir. He's talking to Republicans and conservative or would-be conservative Republicans at that. He's not going to win on this. There's no way you're getting rid of Chuck Schumer by running around calling him a fascist. You have to instead find out what is it that the Democrats want, what are their priorities, because they don't give a damn about whether or not Chuck Schumer is a fascist, as long as he delivers what it is that they want. So you find out what is it that they want, and then you look at Chuck Schumer's record, and you say, you talk directly to the Democrats. Hey, Democrats, this guy hasn't delivered for you. Okay, he's about to face, apparently, this is what everybody's talking about, he's about to face a primary challenge that Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is supposedly going to challenge him in the next Senate race, and that if she does, she's likely to win. So this he makes it easy. All you have to do now is take AOC's side, right? You say, hey, look, Democrats, you really, when you get a chance and she's running for Senate, you ought to vote for her. Because obviously, Chuck Schumer doesn't have your best interests at heart. He's shaking down the President of the United States. Instead of delivering, instead of getting us single-payer health care, instead of reducing the amount of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, instead of housing the homeless, instead of soaking the rich, like he's always promised to do, instead, he's acting like a mobster. That's the way you're going to be able to deal with this guy. Simply whining and complaining to your base is no good. Back in a minute. Thank you. Now a little bit of motivation.
You want to reach greatness? You want to make every single one of your dreams a reality? You want to live like a winner? Well, you got to be willing to grind every fucking day. You got to be willing to put in more energy and more effort than you ever have. It's going to take you reaching the level of what you would normally call your limit and going past it.
Because every limit you have is one that you set yourself in your own mind. You've accepted it as your standard at one point or another. So now is the time to decide that you are going to go higher. You are going to work harder. You are going to go further. You are going to raise your game.
When you start forcing yourself to go harder, getting up earlier, going to bed later, not letting yourself off the hook when it's the weekend, when everyone else is having a good time, people are going to think you're crazy. Good time. People are going to think you're crazy. They're going to make fun of you. They're going to call you a psycho. They're going to talk shit about you and spread rumors about you and try to tear you down.
So what do you do about those people? It's simple. You don't fight back. You don't waste your energy defending yourself. You don't have to say a single word. All you do is grind in silence and let your success make the noise.
Your execution, your actions, your completed tasks will speak for themselves. They will be the things that talk the loudest about who and what you are.
And when you do this, you become a champion. Champions are built from execution. They aren't made sitting around gossiping about other people's lives and whatever the hell they're doing. No, they're made by getting shit done.
So you don't waste time worrying about what everyone else is doing or what anyone else thinks of you. You just do whatever the fuck it takes to get whatever the hell you want.
It's easy to beat most people and get ahead. Why? Because the world's lazy. That's where you gain the advantage. Everyone will talk about it, they'll post about it, they'll make plans about it, but nobody wants to roll up their sleeves and just go get it.
Most people quit at the slightest struggle. Most avoid the hard yards. They won't spend extra time studying. They won't push past their comfort.
Because yes, it's tough, it's grim, it's solitary, and that's my edge. That's where I separate myself from the crowd. When you're grinding away in the dark hours, when everyone else is sleeping, taking time off, chilling out, and you're working your ass off, you get miles ahead of everyone. You're going to get to the point where you are so much further ahead of all those people that they don't even understand how you can get that much stuff done.
And the secret to your success is going to be blood, sweat, and tears. Because nobody ever gets anywhere great with an easy ride. You've got to be willing to work like hell in order to get there. The best in the world at anything did not get there by mistake. They keep working and keep working and keep working and never take their foot off the gas. They never stop. They never quit.
And they never allow anyone else's opinions or criticisms of what they're doing with their life steer them off course. They shut all of that shit out and focus on getting the work done.
And when you see those people judging you and ridiculing you, you want to know the best way to shut them down? You kill them with massive success. You prove them wrong with results. Because nothing succeeds like success.
Who cares what they say? Just execute. Who cares what they think? Just execute. Execution is worshipped. And when you get it done, you'll show the world what you're really made of.
You start acting in your best interest and going above and beyond everyone else, you're going to lose some friends. Not everybody is going to approve of you. There's some people that won't like you.
And that was a little bit of meditation. Back in a minute. No, not meditation, motivation. Back in a minute. Thank you. Now a little bit of meditation. And that was a little bit of meditation. Back in a minute. Thank you. Now a Bill O'Reilly short. And the caption is "Trust is Earned," and this is from his YouTube account.
The presidential campaign of 2028 is already underway. Did you know that? So Gavin Newsom, governor of California, this guy is so perfect for me and for other reporters. It's just beyond belief. He's already campaigning. So he goes to South Carolina, something he would never do. Newsom will be drinking wine up in Napa Valley. South Carolina in July? No way. He goes there on Senator Lindsey Graham's birthday to pound Graham and to pound the big bill. Roll it.
That bill they just signed, that consigns to the greatest transfer of wealth in U.S. history, from one generation to the next. Completely saddling our kids and grandkids. Trillions and trillions of dollars in debt. In order to finance the debt, to provide tax cuts for billionaires and corporations that didn't even ask for them in many cases. Certainly don't need them.
So this is really rich, pardon the pun. So Newsom is going, oh, the big bill is running up our debt. Okay. Newsom took over as the governor of California on January 7th, 2019. At that point in time, California had a $21 billion surplus in Sacramento. They had $21 billion in the bank. How? Because they're the highest taxed state in the union. New York is almost tied. Now, today, California has $12 billion budget deficit. That, in 5.5 years that Newsom's been governing, is a $33 billion spending deficit. $33 billion for one state. And they still don't have enough cops in L.A. They still can't fight fires. San Francisco is still ridiculous. They can't control riots. And this guy wants to be president? My God. You would think that, and the chutzpah of him going out and saying, oh, look at this big bill, you're got to increase the deficit. You, $33 billion in 5.5 years.
So that's pretty much it. So he's making two mistakes here. Number one is he and all the Republicans think that what matters in a presidential campaign or any type of political campaign is the facts. They don't. They never have, and they never will. The political campaigns are always about one thing: popularity. That's all there is to it. The most popular candidate wins. That's the way it is. So the second mistake that he is making is he's preaching to the choir. He's not talking to Democrats. He's talking to Republicans. He's telling Republicans, you should hate Gavin Newsom. Well, guess what, Bill? They already do. So you're wasting your time. And then he will later on scratch his head. Tomorrow, next week, he'll scratch his head. How come? How come I'm not more effective? How come nothing seems to change? Duh. Remember that it's a popularity issue. Go after Gavin Newsom on popularity and go after and speak to the Democrats, because he has to go through a primary first. Okay? And so it's so easy to shape the primary, right? You think about there's going to be other candidates. There might be a lot of other candidates that are going to be running for president. Let's pretend Chuck Schumer's one of them. So now what you do is you say, hey, Democrats, you got Gavin Newsom there. Okay, maybe he's making some good points. But guess what? He's going to be running against Senator Chuck Schumer. And you really ought to consider voting for Senator Chuck Schumer, because Senator Chuck Schumer is, he's better on the things you like. He has been fighting for single-payer health care. He's been fighting to lower carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. He's been fighting to house the homeless, whatever, right? come up with all the things that they like. So the message is, hey, Democrats, forget about Gavin Newsom. Think Chuck Schumer. So this way, you're in the game. You're shaping their decisions. That's a much smarter way to go about it than simply to go and tell people who already don't like Gavin Newsom to continue not liking Gavin Newsom. Back in a minute. Thank you. So there's an article in the American Thinker that caught my eye. It's called The Elephant, the Mouse, and the Machine, and it's about gaslighting. And he says, we're living through an era of professional gaslighting so refined it could qualify for a PhD in psychological warfare. And so this runs along the lines of what I've been saying, which is that gaslighting isn't just the province of people that are highly neurotic or psychotic. It is something that normal people are now using each and every day, and that it's ubiquitous, that you get it from everybody. Your kids gaslight you, your parents, your siblings, the people at work gaslight you, and probably you gaslight them as well. So I haven't read this article yet, but I'm going to go ahead and read it now. I want to see if this guy really understands what's going on. Let's see. Again, we are living, this is by Rick McDowell, The Elephant, the Mouse, and the Machine. We're living through an area of professional gaslighting so refined it could be qualified for a PhD in psychological warfare. The latest example, after years of establishment indifference, we're now being told loudly, breathlessly, that Jeffrey Epstein's legacy of elite depravity is the national scandal of the hour. Apparently, 6 years after his death, this is now urgent. That Donald Trump crossed paths with Epstein is supposed to be more damning than the years Epstein was welcomed by the Clinton inner circle, the Gates orbit, and the upper crust of academia, finance, and intelligence. Let me offer a parable. There's a mouse in the room. Its name is Epstein. The media is pointing at it, stomping its feet, shrieking, "Look at this dangerous mouse." Just behind the mouse stomps an elephant, huge, festering, impossible to ignore if you simply look. This is the face of the biggest federal scandal since the Kennedy assassination. It is the defining image of the deep state, a shadow bureaucracy led by Brennan, Clapper, Comey, and others, manipulating the presentation, not to be confused with facts. Tulsi Gabbard, now Director of National Intelligence, has implicated former President Barack Obama directly, and the evidence supports her. The elephant is real. It is the coordination of the deep state shaping narratives that, for reasons unspoken, are embraced wholesale by legacy media. Today, the media fixates on the firing of a deep state Labor Department official. They dig obsessively for any mud to fling at Trump. Why? Trump derangement syndrome is no longer a sufficient explanation. This is about protecting the machine. But why? Compare Hillary Clinton's destruction of her private server and the hammering to bits of subpoenaed phones. The media shrugged. Why? Aren't they supposed to report the news? Same with the Hunter laptop from hell, the Biden family's foreign business schemes, the jaw-dropping wealth accumulation of congressional lifers. None of it hits the radar. This is the elephant and the machine. The mouse is a distraction, the elephant is the system, the machine is the shield. It's no longer conspiracy to say the deep state exists. It's observation. It's measurable. The federal government has failed multiple audits involving trillions in unaccounted for dollars. Nobody is fired. Nobody is prosecuted. Agencies like the Pentagon, HUD, and state are black holes of spending. Contractors feast, middlemen thrive, and entire careers are built not on results, but on keeping the machine humming for insiders. And Americans, we yawn. We scroll. We buy the next outrage. We are no longer governed. We are processed. This isn't a government of the people. It's a machine for the distribution of favors, immunity, and wealth among the protected class. This is why Epstein didn't matter until now. This is why Hillary can bleach bit servers lie to Congress, and rake in $100,000 per speech. That's why Biden's documented lies and his family's shady foreign deals provoke less interest than a Trump typo. But heaven forbid Trump fill out a form improperly. We've become numb to scale, numb to volume, a $500 hammer here, a $2 trillion boondoggle there. The Pentagon misplaces $6.2 trillion, shrug. Hunter Biden makes millions in Ukraine while his dad shapes policy, shrug. Bureaucrats retire with six-figure pensions after decades of managing failure as public servants, shrug again. And now, like a bad B-movie reboot, the Epstein plotline is dragged back into the spotlight as the headline event. Somehow the deep state's vast corruption is treated as a distraction from Epstein. It's almost admirable in a clinical psychopath kind of way. Let's not play dumb. The system isn't just corrupt, it's self-aware. It protects its members, demonizes threats, and launders its failures through distraction. And like all declining empires, it cloaks its rot in the language of justice and democracy. The same DOJ that ignores arson, looting, and political violence in blue cities suddenly finds religion when a Republican sneezes in the wrong direction. The same agencies that fumbled 9/11, Iraq WMDs, Russiagate, and the Hunter laptop now ask for your trust again. Here's the truth. Epstein was a grotesque man with grotesque friends, but the reason his story is being reactivated now is not justice. It's cover. It's projection. It's the oldest trick in the political playbook. Accuse your enemies of the crimes you are terrified might be traced back to you. Be careful what you wish for, because if the Epstein list ever truly breaks open, if the full extent of who flew where and why and who knew what ever comes to light, then the same people hurling accusations today might find themselves holding the dynamite with the fuse already lit. It's getting harder to hide that elephant behind the mouse. And that was the article by Rick McDowell. He's a writer of political philosophy, American history, and essays of the mind. I expected better from him. This was really cursory, really surface-oriented. He really doesn't explain how any of this is done and when and where it got started. And that's what he should have done. So he gets a D as far as I'm concerned. Back in a minute. Thank you. End of Maria, beginning of Stewart.
Annually, wage growth as well as inflation being down. To me, things feel like they're chugging along. So I wouldn't even take these revisions that close to heart.
Yeah, I think that job creation story is tied to the AI story. These things take time. These factories are going to get built. They're already underway in several states. Mitch.
I want to go back to the thing that the president's uber focused on, which is interest rates, and the fact that the Fed has a dual mandate. And we've focused on inflation, but now that we know that the job market may not be as hot as we thought it was, why isn't the Fed acting? Okay, and now we know that jobs are tepid, and if there was ever a time to decrease interest rates, it's now. And we've got a shining light on the fact that the job market is cooler than, not as hot as we thought it was.
Mitch, Rochelle, Caroline, Downey, thank you both for being with me this morning. I'll see you all tomorrow. Varney and Company is up right now. Good morning, Stuart.
Yes, it is. And good morning, Cheryl. Good morning, everyone. One key sentence in a statement on trade is having a positive effect. Jameson Greer said, quote, "These tariff rates are pretty much set," end quote. In other words, with just a few days before Thursday's deadline, the tariff program has been put in place. We know what we're getting, and the market likes it. It is Monday morning following Friday's sell-off, and we have a Monday morning rally. The Dow Industrial is up maybe 200 points. Same with the Nasdaq, up close to 200. Plenty of green as we start a Monday morning. Now look at Palantir. It reports after the bell today. I heard the company described as the Lionel Messi of the AI boom. Well, it has doubled in price this calendar year, and it is up in pre-market trading, up $3 at 157. Bitcoin, well, not doing much. We're quoting now at 114.4. The 10-year Treasury yield, that's way below 4.25%. You're down to 4.21 right now. And will you please look at the 2-year? That's down to 3.68%. Politics. The president demands lower interest rates. He did not like the sharp downward revision in jobs numbers. He says the report was rigged. The Fed should have cut rates a long time ago if the jobs market had been so weak for so long. Maybe investors are buying today because they think Trump's demand for a rate cut will be satisfied soon. Maybe so. On the show today, new video shows an emaciated Israeli hostage digging his own grave in a tunnel built by Hamas in Gaza. Where is the outrage? Zoran Mandani is the leading candidate for New York's mayoral election. He has yet to condemn Hamas or hostage-taking. Some Texas Democrats have fled to Illinois rather than vote on a redistricting plan. Governor Abbott says they're running away from a fight. Action will be taken against them. The governor says the truancy ends now. And the Gene story lives on. President Trump was told that Sydney Sweeney is a Republican. He said, "You'd be surprised at how many people are Republicans." And then he said, quote, "If she's a Republican, I think the ad is great." Monday morning, August the 4th, 2025, Varney and Company is about to begin.
And that was Stuart Varney. Back in a minute. Wait, nonprofit news now. Back in a minute. Thank you. And now, what does the phrase, "if you're explaining you're losing," mean in debates? This was said by Ronald Reagan, speaking of political campaigns. From the perspective of your audience, if you have to explain yourself, you come off looking desperate to convince. As a consequence, you lose the high ground. From a more philosophical perspective, when you have a clear conscience and strong conviction towards the positions you take, your values, truth, and direction, you don't need the opinions or consent of others. As a consequence, you don't need to explain yourself. However, if you yourself are not convinced of the validity and truth of your position, or you can't fully justify your choices, then you continue to expel words in an attempt to create the illusion of certainty. Back in a minute. Thank you. So about the American Eagle non-controversy, again, this is something they're using as a weapon. They're hinting and suggesting that there's some sort of something racist going on here. The quickest, easiest way to deal with this is simply to ask anybody that is putting this in your face, is simply ask them, well, what race do you think that this woman is anyway? And then don't wait for very long for an answer. Just say, maybe we'll talk again. Have a nice day, and walk away. They can't answer that question because answering the question then makes them look like the racists that they claim everyone else is. So again, forget about all the, don't get caught up in making some big long speech about the state of racism in our society today and quoting facts and all that bullshit. Don't do that. Instead, you say to them, what race do you think she is anyhow? Because they wrote the rules, and the rules of our society right now are that you get to decide what your race or sex or anything else is, for that matter, is at any given moment. We had a white woman that was running the NAACP in Seattle, Washington, who claimed to be black because she simply said, I identify as black. Then there was a Senator Pocahontas, that got into Harvard in part because she claimed to be a tribal person because she identified as a tribal person. Well, there you go. So that means that the woman in the ad, in the American Eagle ad, is whatever race she identifies as. And that means if you haven't asked her, you don't know. Back in a minute. Thank you. Now the preamble to the Declaration of Independence. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed, that whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it, and to institute new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. Back in a minute. Thank you. Another article from the American Thinker. This one seems to have some more better potential than the last one. And it's by Christopher Chantrell. It's called "What Has the Intelligence Community Done for Us Lately?" Now that the Durham Annex is out, and we know that the Dems and the intelligence community were fumbling a pathetic play to stay in the game for one more quarter, I want to say that I really don't care, Cupcake, about bringing frightful vengeance upon the guilty. In fact, I think it would be best if all the Obamas and Clintons and Comeys and Brennans and Rays and Clappers get away with their incompetent betrayal of our great country, scot-free. Because then we can point forever to the utter corrupt incompetence of the ruling class that was, and how we should never allow such dumb bunnies into the catbird seat again. Just a ruling class cover-up, covering a cover-up, and then covering up the cover-up of the cover-up. And we learn that the political class and the intelligence community aren't even competent at covering up their cover-ups. The bigger question is, what kind of a spy operation does the United States really need? And he goes on from there. But that's the point, I think, that needs to be drawn out. I was just thinking about this when I heard about the, Russiagate is back. I'm so sick and tired of it. I'm so tired of listening to Sean Hannity go through this whole litany of who sent an email to whom and why and blah, and Russian prostitutes and all this crap. And then it struck me and said, you know what? For all their effort, look at all the effort that they went through. And if you look at everything in its entirety, not just Russiagate, but weaponizing the government in order to put an innocent man on trial, etc., they failed. How incompetent is this? They spent how much time and how many millions and billions of dollars on this kind of crap, and they got nowhere. Nowhere. Donald Trump is not only president of the United States, he's more powerful than ever before. And if you're a Democrat, you got to be asking yourself an important question. What if the Democrats had spent the money, time, and energy on housing the homeless, dealing with the border better, putting, from the Democrat standpoint, simply putting these people to work? What else did they? CO2, carbon dioxide. How about single-payer health care? How long have Democrats wanted single-payer health care? 50 years, 60 years, more, maybe longer? Imagine if the Democrat Party had put the effort into single-payer health care that they have put into trying to get rid of Donald Trump. Where would we be? Probably healthcare paradise. But instead, the Democrat Party, Hillary Clinton and her ilk waste everyone's time and money. And that's what really Russiagate is really all about. Wasting everyone's time and money. Back in a minute. Thank you. And now from a book that's called Good Inside. What's the opposite of understanding? For this argument's sake, it's convincing. Convincing is the attempt to prove a singular reality, to prove that only one thing is true. Convincing is an attempt to be right, and as a result make the other person wrong. It rests on the assumption that there's only one correct viewpoint. And then my question is this supposed to be convincing? Further, convincing has one goal in mind, being right. And here's the unfortunate consequence of being right. The other person feels unseen and unheard, at which point most people become infuriated and combative, because it feels as if the other person does not accept your realness or worth. Feeling unseen and unheard makes connection impossible. Understanding two things are true and convincing one thing is true are diametrically opposed ways of approaching other people, so a powerful first step in any interaction is to notice which mode you're in. When you're in one thing is true mode, you're judgmental of and reactive to someone else's experience because it feels like an assault on your own truth. As a result, you will seek to prove your own point of view, which in turn makes the other person defensive because they need to uphold the realness of their experience. In one thing is true mode, exchanges escalate quickly. Each person thinks they're arguing about the content of the conversation when in fact they're trying to defend that they are a real, worthy person with a real, truthful experience. And again, is this convincing? Back in a minute. Thank you. About the situation where the person that he fired, Donald Trump fired a person in the Department of Labor for providing false statistics. And, of course, predictably, Democrats are jumping up and down, screaming and yelling about it. This is a perfect opportunity for Donald Trump to simply rub it in, to say, that's right, I fired her. I did so without your permission because I don't need your permission. I fired her, and there's nothing you can do about it because you have no authority, no power, and you can't win. Back in a minute. Thank you. So as far as the interest rates are concerned, the news people are going on and on about how Donald Trump wants the interest rates to be reduced, and I like that idea. I think that would help me personally. What it would do to the overall economy, I don't know. But what he can do is either fire this Fed chief, or if he doesn't have the authority to fire him, then he has to be removed in some way, shape, or form. Perhaps he has to be impeached. But the point is that if you put enough pressure on him, I believe that Powell will resign. And because why is it that the American people, me, should suffer through this guy for the next 8 months, 10 months, whatever it is, until next May when his term expires? Why wait for that? One of the things I want that this helps me emphasize is that every elected official serves at the pleasure of the people. There's no such thing as a guaranteed job, and there's no such thing as a forever job. There are liars in the government that say that the Supreme Court justices are nominated and they're in their posts forever. No, they're not. They're in there as long as we want them there, because we can have them impeached. That's how you remove a Supreme Court justice. Same thing with the President of the United States. We want him gone, he's gone. He doesn't want to leave, we have him impeached and forcibly removed from office. If we have people in Congress that we don't want there, push comes to shove, we can have a recall. We can recall. We decide, we the people are the movers and shakers in this government, not the elected officials, so including Powell. So if Donald Trump wants him gone, make him gone. Again, go to Congress and say, impeach him. Demand an impeachment from Congress and start a campaign to get him impeached. And I believe that he will resign sooner rather than later. Back in a minute. Thank you. So about the beatings, that there's several people that took a beating in Cincinnati. This is another example of the left, through their mouthpieces in the media, is trying to shape reality. That's the way they see themselves, as reality shapers. They use for-profit news as a way of covering their attempts to shape our world and our culture. And what they're trying to shape here in terms of reality is the idea that whether or not this is a benevolent or malevolent universe, whether or not this is a scary place, they're trying to make the case that the universe and the world that we live in is very, very scary, that things happen all of a sudden, out of nowhere. You're walking down the street, and the next thing you know, somebody's beating the crap out of you. It's bullshit. I know it, you know it, we all know it. What they do is they crop the story so they don't include what happened just before this incident occurred and just after. They don't tell the whole story. The truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. They tell just enough so as to validate their theory that this is a scary universe and that you should always be afraid. And also, they know that conflict sells. Resolution doesn't. Back in a minute. Thank you. So there's something new at least new to me, about illegal aliens and whether or not they should get tuition assistance. Here's an example of a situation where it's a policy issue, and one of the things that the Republicans are weak at is dealing themselves into the game. They have too much of a tendency to just say no, and then when they just say no and sit there, they've dealt themselves out of the game, which means that they have no power, no control, no nothing. They have to just accept whatever it is the Democrats end up handing them. So in this particular situation, the thing that you could do is you say, if you don't want to give tax or tuition assistance to illegal aliens, is you go to the universities and you say to them, I'll tell you what we're going to do. For all the universities that that will voluntarily refuse to process tuition assistance for people that are here illegally, we, the federal government, will give you a tax break. And you can, all the details you can work out later down the line. But when you do that, you provide a counter proposal, because I'm sure this tuition assistance for illegal aliens is a Biden era issue and a Democrat issue. You provide the counterweight. So now people have a choice. Let me see, we have tuition assistance for people that really don't deserve it, or we can have a tax break. We can say no to illegal aliens and get ourselves a tax break. So, and there may be even better ideas than a tax break, but that's just an example. Back in a minute. Thank you. Some quick comments about Kamala Harris, AOC's, and Zamblami, or whatever his name is. As far as Kamala Harris is concerned, she's written a book and she's out promoting that book, and she still is having some problems dealing with speaking in public. And I've noticed that when I have listened to clips of her interviews on late night TV shows and whatnot. Her problem is, and I've said this before, that she has stage fright. And there's a lot of people that say she's stupid, but no. That doesn't make any sense. She's got stage fright. If she was stupid, she wouldn't have been able to get a law degree. If she was stupid, she wouldn't have been able to pass the bar. Okay, there's a lot of things that she's done that prove that stupidity doesn't explain it. So what does? it has to be stage fright. That every time the cameras go on, I bet that if you talk to her one-on-one in a room without any cameras or reporters around, she'd probably come off as a very, very sharp, intelligent person. But once the lights go on, when she has to go out on stage fright. And her mind probably goes blank, and that's when she gets into the word salads and the excessive ha-ha-ha-haing and whatnot. So as soon, and I think it's a great idea that she take a break. And that's what she did. She says she's not going to run for governor. Good for her, especially if she has not yet conquered or mastered her stage fright. And I don't think that she has. So I'm hoping that she has recognized that the reason that she's taking a break is because she's recognized she has stage fright, and she is talking to a doctor to deal with it. So then about AOC and the other guy, there's talk that the socialists are taking over the Democrat Party. First of all, you know the socialists because they're the ones that refuse to admit they're wrong. They won't even consider the possibility. Everyone else is wrong, and they're right. If reality contradicts them, then reality is the problem. If knowledge contradicts them, knowledge is the problem. If ethics contradicts them, ethics is the problem. And so the only thing that I can hope for is that they succeed, at least in the short run, that AOC becomes a senator, that this Mamdani guy becomes the mayor of New York, and then that he fails so miserably that hopefully New Yorkers will then say to themselves, never again. And people like AOC and Mamdani will never get elected again. Back in a minute. Thank you. And now a little bit of feedback that I got from an email. And this is from, let me see. They hyphenated it. LYN at my7principles.com. From Struggles to Solutions, Chaz Sampson on Maximizing Potential. So, hi Ronald. Listening to your latest episode, I found the military shorts segment particularly engaging, especially as you tied it to real-world impact for service members. The clarity and conviction with which you discussed underappreciated corners of American patriotism stood out. It had me thinking how those stories connect to broader issues facing our veterans every day. On that note, I believe Chaz Simpson would be an outstanding guest for The True Conservative. Chaz is the founder of 7 Principles Group, a company fully dedicated to ensuring U.S. veterans maximize their VA disability benefits and financial potential. Like your show, Chaz champions those often left behind by the system. His approach mixes real advocacy with practical business know-how. Throughout his leadership, Chaz has made key decisions driving both growth and ethical integrity at 7 Principles Group. He's built trusted relationships with veterans and stakeholders nationwide, always operating with principle or with purpose and accountability. Chaz's firsthand experience with business strategy and real solutions for service members aligns naturally with the themes your audience values, especially as you spotlighted both motivation and real-life hurdles in your recent program. I'd be thrilled to connect you with Chaz so your listeners can hear directly from someone who stands shoulder to shoulder with veterans fighting for their dignity and due compensation. Thanks for keeping The True Conservative authentic and impactful. Best, Lyndon Gasses. And that was a little bit of feedback in the email. Back in a minute. Thank you. And now, Chapter 11 of Moral Politics.
Chapter 11. Crime and the Death Penalty. No topic draws a clearer line between liberals and conservatives than that of violent crime. Strict father morality sees the cure for violent crime simply as strict punishment. This derives from the strict father model of the family that demands that disobedience must be punished, preferably in a painful fashion, with an instrument like a belt or a rod. It assumes the morality of reward and punishment, which says that punishment is the moral alternative, and it also assumes a behaviorist theory of human nature that says punishment will work to eliminate violence. In addition, conservatives claim that violent crime has been the result of permissive child-rearing practices. They claim that violent crime in later life is caused by a lack of strict discipline at home, a lack of painful corporal punishment in response to disobedience. A mother's nurturance without a father's discipline, they imply, produces antisocial, uninhibited, violent children with no respect for law. Conservatives, using this reasoning, attribute the rise in violent crime to the corresponding decline in the presence of fathers in American homes, due to divorce and illegitimacy. The assumption is that a father would administer strict discipline with painful corporal punishment for disobedience, and that this would teach children to behave and to grow up as law-abiding, self-reliant citizens. The nurturant parent model of the family makes exactly the opposite claim. It says that children are best socialized and taught responsibility through a nurturant upbringing where discipline is maintained through loving, respectful, and firm interactions and a constant attention to mutual responsibilities and explanations. Painful corporal punishment, the nurturant model says, does just the opposite of what it is intended to do. It teaches violence, and violence begets violence. Children who are made to submit through pain to the will of a parent are taught to make others submit to them through their use of violent methods. Correspondingly, neglect has a similar effect. Neglect is a lack of the nurturance in which discipline comes out of loving, responsible interactions. Neglect is thus a form of violence, a denial of needed nurturance. Liberals respond that violence among fatherless children living in high-crime districts is a result of one or more of the following. 1. Mothers who act like abusive strict fathers, administering corporal punishment for disobedience and berating their children. 2. Mothers who are neglectful. Or 3. Social causes, such as poverty or peer pressure. Liberals further argue that mothers who are abusive or neglectful were abused or neglected themselves. The long-term cure for violent crime, liberals argue, is 1. Nurturant environments in which there are no neglectful or abusive strict parent models, and 2. The reduction or elimination of poverty by the provision of job training and jobs. From the liberal perspective, what the conservatives are suggesting would just increase violence. Advocates of nurturant parent-child rearing practices cite research indicating that strict father families and corporal punishment contribute importantly to delinquency and violence in later life. Such studies will be discussed in Chapter 21. Gun control. Liberal support for gun control is a consequence of the nurturant parent's view of painful corporal punishment, that it contributes to a cycle of violence. Guns are not intended just for target practice or sport. They are intended to hurt or kill people. The very presence of a gun evokes scenarios in which guns are used. These scenarios, self-defense, retribution, or revenge, all share the property that violent punishment is seen as the natural response to wrongdoing. That very idea, the nurturant parent model claims, leads to further violence. And further violence with guns means more killing. Conservatives' support for the right to bear arms, even the right to bear machine guns, comes from strict father morality, which says that it is the responsibility of everyone to protect himself as well as he can, and it is the responsibility of the strict father to protect his family. Guns are seen as the individual's form of protection in a hostile world, and they are symbolic of the male role as family protector. They are an instrument of moral strength, and a symbol of the power of the strict father. As such, they also uphold the moral order. There is thus a very good reason why it is conservatives who support the right to bear arms at a time when conservatives are down in general on rights, as liberals have defined them. Example, the right to a decent standard of living, the right to an education, and the like. There is also a good reason why very impassioned opposition to gun control often goes with survivalism, Survivalism is about self-reliance through self-discipline, the hallmark of strict father morality. And there is a good reason why those who are impassioned about the right to bear arms and about survivalism are also against the income tax. As we have seen, opposition to taxation fits strict father morality. And there is a reason why advocates of the right to bear arms are often violently anti-communist. The strict father model provides the link between the protective function of the father and the principle of the morality of reward and punishment, the very basis of all morality in the strict father model. This is by no means to say that all conservatives are gun nuts, survivalists, anti-tax activists, and strong anti-communists. But there is a good reason why those values fit together, and why people with those values tend to be conservatives. Crime. Why do conservatives believe in spending money to build more prisons, and in tougher sentencing laws, even for non-violent offenders? Why do they support the 3 strikes and you're outlaw, mandating 25-year-to-life sentences for repeat non-violent as well as violent offenders? Why do they do so in the face of evidence that having more people in prison does not reduce crime? The state of Minnesota's Kids First program, which stresses daycare, education, and community involvement, has succeeded in crime prevention at a much lower cost than running prisons. Why has this model not been supported by conservatives? The answer comes out of strict father morality, in which the moral strength system of metaphors is primary, with moral self-interest right behind it. Strict father morality thus includes retribution, moral strength, moral self-interest, and moral essence. Retribution sees punishment as defining justice. The priority of moral strength entails that a show of strength is the best protection against evil. It is a consequence of moral self-interest that people act in their own self-interest. Hence, people will commit crimes if it is their interest, that is, if punishment is lenient, and won't commit crimes if it is not in their interest, if punishment is harsh. And according to moral essence, past behavior is a guide to essential character, and essential character predicts future behavior. Therefore, a repeat offender has a bad character, which means he's likely to commit crimes again. To protect the public, he should be imprisoned for a long time. By strict father morality, harsh prison terms for criminals and life imprisonment for repeat offenders are the only moral options. Programs like Minnesota's Kids First are social programs and are, as such, immoral to conservatives for reasons given above. The conservative arguments are moral arguments, not practical arguments. Statistics about which policies do or do not actually reduce crime rates do not count in a morality-based discourse. Liberals, following nurturant parent morality, point to Minnesota's Kids First as an argument that prevention programs can reduce crime, while pointing to statistics indicating that putting people in prison does not. Liberals see crime as having social causes: poverty, unemployment, alienation, and lack of caring in community, and argue that social programs are needed to address those social causes. Conservatives don't believe in social causes of crime or in any other social causes. Let's consider why. Class and social causes. Conservatives tend not to use explanations based on the concepts of class and social causes, nor do they recommend policy based on those notions. Why? Liberals use these concepts all the time, in providing explanations and in formulating and justifying policy. Again, why? What is it about the difference between liberals and conservatives that makes these concepts sensible to one, but not to the other? Think for a moment about how the notions of class and social forces are used. Class structure comes with the notion of an upper class with wealth and power that wants to maintain its privileges. A lower class, the cheap labor of the upper class, held down and kept subservient to the upper class, and a middle class caught in between, aspiring to be upper class and afraid of falling into the lower class, but also depending on the cheap labor of the lower class. Social forces are usually postulated to account for the failure of certain lower-class groups to succeed, to gain access to wealth and power. People in the lower class can get caught in the system and be unable to rise. Such a social arrangement is seen by liberals as unfair. It is a social injustice. According to this picture, the upper and middle classes could not maintain their current lifestyles without the cheap and often difficult and demeaning labor of the lower class, picking vegetables, working in fast food places, cleaning houses, collecting garbage. In this picture, the upper classes owe a lot to the lower class, much more than they are paying. Social justice demands that the lower class be paid more, live under better conditions, and be given maximal opportunities to work their way out of poverty. Opportunities for education and job training, for example. This picture is usually supplied as a justification for government to do something to help out the people at the bottom, at least to provide for their basic needs and to give them enough education and job training to allow them to do a bit better. It is also used to explain the rage and violence of lower-class people against the system that imprisons them, socially and economically. It is the class structure and the social forces holding it in place that does the imprisoning. Concepts like class and social and economic forces and social and economic imprisonment fit naturally into a liberal worldview. For liberals, the essence of America is nurturance, part of which is helping those who need help. People who are trapped by social and economic forces need help to escape. The metaphorical nurturant parent, the government, has a duty to help change the social and economic system that traps people. By this logic, the problem is in the society, not in the people innocently trapped. If social and economic forces are responsible, then other social and economic forces must be brought to bear to break the trap. This whole picture is simply inconsistent with strict father morality and the conservative worldview it defines. In that worldview, the class hierarchy is simply a ladder, there to be climbed by anybody with the talent and self-discipline to climb it. Whether or not you climb the ladder of wealth and privilege is only a matter of whether you have the moral strength, character, and inherent talent to do so. Because explanations for success or failure give priority to moral strength and moral essence, explanations in terms of social forces and class make no sense. They are only seen as excuses for lack of talent, laziness, or some other form of moral weakness. In such a worldview, the concept of social justice does not make sense. If the poor are selling their labor to the rich, then it is the labor market and the labor market alone that determines what that labor is worth. Labor, in this metaphor, is a commodity like any other commodity, and its value is not inherent but determined by what people are willing to pay in exchange for it. The morality of reward and punishment, which requires that all markets be free markets, demands this. Any other arrangement would be immoral and threaten the very moral foundations of society. It is for this reason that conservatives are against the minimum wage, while liberals, in the name of a bare minimum of social justice, support it. To conservatives, the existence of a wealthy class simply makes real the morality of reward and punishment, the basis of all morality. It is not wrong, not something to be corrected, for the wealthy to seek further privilege. It is natural and moral, a guarantee that the morality of reward and punishment continues to work. Crucial to this is what conservatives see as the essence of America, the ladder of success myth. As long as free enterprise flourishes and anyone with enough self-discipline and imagination can become an entrepreneur, the morality of reward and punishment will hold and all will be well. The logic of conservatism locates so-called social problems within people, not within society. For this reason, it would make no sense to conservatives to use class and social forms as forms of explanation and justification for social policy. Nature and nurture. The term nurture has two related senses, one having to do with nurturance, nurture one, and the other with environmentally determined rather than genetically determined factors in human development, nurture two. As in the opposition between nature and nurture, nurturance is clearly an environmentally determined factor, and it leads liberals to look almost exclusively at environmentally determined factors in social and political explanations. Though strict father morality is opposed to the goal of a nurturant society, it is extremely concerned with environmental factors, such as child-rearing and the more general use of reward and punishment. But there are other parts of strict father morality that are concerned with nature as opposed to nurture too. Strict father morality gives high priority to moral essence and the idea that the moral order is the natural order of dominance. Thus, there is a strain in conservatism that uses nature, as well as environmentally determined factors, as a means of explanation for social problems. Conservatives can have it both ways. Unsuccessful people can fail for one of two reasons, because they lack either 1, character, which is environmentally determined, or 2, talent, which is natural. That is why conservatives tend to like books like The Bell Curve, while liberals tend not to. The bell curve provides the second explanation for the economic failure of blacks, lack of talent. But if that can't be proved, there is always lack of character as an explanation. Preventing crime. The difference in conservative and liberal moral systems leads to different views of the role of nature and nurture and of the explanatory validity of concepts like class and social forces. To conservatives, any appeal to social forces is always just an excuse for lack of talent, nature, or lack of character, nurture too. Conservatives therefore don't address crime by looking for social causes. They address crime just the way they would address the refusal of a child to abide by his parents' rules, according to the morality of reward and punishment. Conservatives punish crime, and they assume that if crime is punished harshly enough, it will end. Because criminals will have a strong enough disincentive to keep them from committing crimes. If disincentives don't work, then the criminals must be inherently bad, rotten to the core, and should be locked away for life or for a very long time. Given the central position that the morality of reward and punishment has in the conservative moral system, it is no surprise that conservatives in most cases prefer retribution over restitution as a form of justice. As a way of balancing the moral books, it is therefore no surprise that conservatives are in favor of the death penalty. It is a form of retribution, a life for a life. Liberals, of course, look at these issues very differently. The primacy of empathy leads to an overriding concern with fairness toward anyone committing a crime. Moral action, Category 1. Given the overwhelming power of the state, any citizen is helpless by comparison unless the rule of law is carried out scrupulously. Great care must be exercised that people accused of crimes be given a fair trial, and that their rights as citizens not be overridden by the state. Liberals are acutely aware that the police can abuse their power and act unfairly to get a conviction. This is especially true where the accused is someone who is poor or a member of a minority group. Poor people cannot get as good representation in court as rich people, and members of minority groups are subject to prejudice. Most of the people who have been given the death penalty and are on death row are poor members of minority groups. Overwhelming concerns for empathy and fairness, which grow out of the nurturant parent model, lead liberals to have a paramount concern for the abuse of state power. Conservatives see such a concern as coddling criminals, as caring more about the criminal than the victim. They are puzzled by liberal behavior. If liberals are so concerned about protecting the helpless, why aren't they more concerned about protecting the victims of crime? Why aren't they promoting stricter penalties in the name of protection? It is not that liberals are not concerned about the victims of crimes. Rather, they disagree about how crime is to be minimized overall. First, the rule of law must be upheld. If the state can act like a criminal, framing innocent people and trampling on the rights of the accused, then all hope for the rule of law is lost. To keep the state and its representatives, the police and the courts, honest, the rights of everyone accused of a crime must be upheld strictly. Fairness is the issue here. If the legal system is not fair, it will have no legitimacy. Fairness is a consideration that arises in nurturant parent morality out of concerns for empathy and nurturance for all. Second, liberals do believe in social causes. They believe that if children are not raised in nurturant environments, they will not learn to behave responsibly toward others. If a gang is the closest thing to a nurturant community a child knows, then he will engage in gang behavior. Thus, the way to best inculcate responsible behavior over the whole society is to provide nurturant environments for as many people as possible. The best long-range approach to fighting crime is to fund programs like Project Head Start, to provide high-quality daycare for poor working parents, to provide high-quality education for the poor, and so on. That is why a liberal like Anthony Lewis, New York Times, August 8, 1995, is so outraged when he sees conservatives cutting $137 million from Project Head Start and simultaneously giving the military $7 billion more than it said it needed. It costs more than $20,000 a year to house one prisoner for a year, the cost of tuition at an Ivy League college. Liberals argue that in the long run, it is more effective, a lot cheaper, and a lot better for everyone to fund Project Head Start, daycare centers, and so on. But conservatives believe that there can be no such thing as social causes of crime, that crime is always a matter of individual moral weakness. It follows then that it is silly to spend money on countering non-existent social causes. Third, liberals do not believe in the overriding morality of reward and punishment. They do not believe that it is mainly fear of punishment that binds society together and makes people act kindly, responsibly, or at least civilly toward each other. Liberals believe that it is nurturance that brings this about, that loving and supportive parent-child bonding creates communities in which there are strong social ties. It is not that rewards and punishments are never appropriate, but they are not the basis of morality. Nurturance is. Simply increasing penalties, liberals argue, will not eliminate crime. The death penalty, liberals argue, has been shown not to be a deterrent to murder. Murderers apparently do not do a cost-benefit analysis before killing someone, and so the death penalty does not deter them. The death penalty. The death penalty itself is a major dividing line between liberals and conservatives. Supporters tend to be conservative and opponents tend to be liberal. Nurturant parent morality militates against the death penalty. The major legal argument given rests on fairness, which, as we have seen, arises in nurturant parent morality from considerations of empathy and nurturance. The argument is that the courts do not have a way to guarantee that the death penalty is applied fairly. Prejudice and politics do enter into murder trials. If a person unfairly convicted of murder is executed, then there is no recourse if he is later discovered to have been innocent. Most of the people on death row are poor and black, and are unable to afford adequate legal representation, which, it is argued, makes it more likely that they will get the death penalty. The same penalties should apply to all racial and economic groups. If that is not true of the death penalty should not be applied at all. But liberals' feelings about the death penalty run much deeper than that. Nurturance itself implies a reverence for life, which is a form of the unconditional love of nurturant parents for their children. If the government is conceptualized as a nurturant parent, then it should have such an overwhelming reverence for life itself. The death penalty denies such a reverence for life, and so is inconsistent with the conception of the government as nurturant parent. In strict father morality, the strict father metes out punishment for the wrongdoings of children. The nation as family metaphor makes the government into the big daddy who is meting out punishment. Are there any limits on the harshness of punishment? The lack of such limits in the family would make it moral for a parent to kill his child in the name of discipline. When parents are abusive, this can happen, and all too frequently does. Infanticide is what the death penalty amounts to in the nation as family metaphor. The specter of the state functioning like a murderously abusive parent is, I believe, what lies behind the constitutional prohibition against cruel and inhuman punishment and behind liberals' abhorrence of the death penalty. For these reasons, I believe, liberals find the death penalty uncivilized and point out that nations around the world have banned it. It sets a bad example for the state to be engaged in killing people, the worst crime someone could commit. Just as parents can set bad examples, so, according to the nation as family metaphor, can the government. Governments should not be in the business of killing people. Arguments against the death penalty are not just about the death penalty itself. They are emblematic of a broader issue. They are about how the state should be conceptualized and how it should function in general. The liberal arguments, of course, cannot possibly be persuasive to conservatives. If the very basis of morality is reward and punishment, then in a moral society, the way to deal with crime is punishment, an eye for an eye, period. The argument that the death penalty does not deter murder doesn't really matter that much. To conservatives, the death penalty is part of a moral society, in which the morality of reward and punishment rules supreme.
And that was Chapter 11 of Moral Politics, How Liberals and Conservatives Think by George Lakoff. And again, the whole point of his book is to try to make them equivalent. Liberals and conservative thinking is all equivalent. It's all the same. They just have some differences, but in terms of morals or ethics, one isn't inherently superior to the other. They're both ethically or morally the same, but the only difference is popularity. Back in a minute. Thank you, and this is Ron, your host, the only true conservative in the United States today, bidding adios to all the butchers, bakers, and candlestick makers out there, and reminding you that materialism is a concept.